So it's upon us, Rafa. I'm not condemning. That's not my mission, except always to condemn anybody, killing anybody. But for the exercise, asking why. What's the plan? What was it on October the 7th and why? What is it and why since? There are answers. And since I'm not trafficking in the evil notion that one side or other is 100% victim and the other Satan, I can hear it with ears alive. The explanation I'm asking. Even Satan has a grievance. Therein lies a whole other discussion. How does one perform Beowulf, a Christian poem, without some sympathy for Grendel, son of Cain, dwelling in the fens of Nod to the east of Oslo? It has been done. Jaws, the movie, is the perfect reenactment, but today the great white is a victim with grievance. Can we do this? Or is it our dominant, Bertrand Russell's quavering assurances about savages and the civilized? We, of course, being the civilized because of the coats we wear and the pipes we smoke in conversation and that accent. Russell is very instructive. He's very visible. I get lost in what exactly philosophy is, but he doesn't seem to sum up. He does seem to sum up the layman Christian obviousness that the instinctual is inherently bad, that philosophy or religion will modify this badness, since, Socrates and Plato and the walkers of the straight and narrow will live what all philosophers call the good life. This goodness seems to be universally important and conveniently undefined. Bertrand and his lot would have had a hard time, probably, looking at the swirling, singing, seething mass of soccer fans in a stadium. I hope I'm wrong, but I think they'd see little good in this. This orgy of joy would not impress. I saw such a swirling a few years ago at a soccer match, and to me it was a marvel. There's growing evidence that Stonehenge was hoisted perpendicular, not by a miserable mob of slaves driven to it by ghoulish druids with whips, but by a gathering from all over the island after a month-long party. Why does Russell not imagine this Dionysian version? Look at him. Not a stone heaver, he. He imagines the world like the rest of us, the place that would value him. The intellectual's internal dilemma. I am above the fray, I hope, and will write a lot about this, and my tribe will peep out of laboratories, or whatever you call it, and lecture halls and feel akin, relieved that they needn't look further within, that they have been defined by me, by my book as valid, nay, the wisest, that valid. They can surrender to that most weakness. In this, scientists, philosophers are like religions and nationalisms. They define us so we needn't. They are shortcuts. The recording of Russell was from 1960, after the Second World War, after the actions of who, in 1930, most of us would have declared one of the most cultured and civilized societies ever. All those poets and composers, philosophers, Bertie exalted, the doctors, the scientists, the lawyers studying America's methods of racial repression, etc. Somebody was celebrating something January 30th, 1933. Some more somebodies than we are to be comfortable with. So Rafa, the last push, the coup de grace, the sword between the withers, so the animal stumbles, kneels and dies, and the mincing multicolored matador bows deeply, flowers are thrown. The toreadors who did the real damage, the dirty work, hover around the stadium like Russians in Stalingrad and applaud the Yankee matador for finally arriving. The metaphor is amusing, but someone has imagined the bull as a Nazi or terrorist to get that grisly job done, while the onlooking crowd bayed, men felt chest tightness, and women swooned. We know people on both sides have cheered and are cheering massacres of innocents, non-combatants, children, before they have heard the word and acquiesced, saying yes to God's commandment to kill the infidel and idol worshipper. It's in the books. When they'd still say no. How old? 4, before spouting their parents' hatreds. And hatred for hatred, we are all equal. Let no one fool himself about the nature of this hatred. This is a quote. It is the father of action, echoing Russell. The way out of our defiled and desecrated house lies in the command to hate Satan. Only thus we will earn the right to seek in the darkness for the way of love. Breathtaking, innit? Find that Satan. It's the only way out. Russell is big on an instinctive hostility, hinting its presence in brown breasts exclusively. He adds it to competition. What would he do with all those athletes, opposing athletes, hugging when the game is done? And the gobsmacker, without competition we become indolent, unmotivated. We are unified and defined by our enemies. On the playing fields of Eton, Bertie? In-house hostility, practice at dawn, 5 days a week, chaps. Otherwise, who will be ready to supervise the umpire? And he says, like all others before and after, society has always been constructed with kings. Kings using fear, not goodwill, as motive. Bullshit, I whisper under breath to escape lynching. There are more things in heaven and earth. That the kingly class have tiny lives, were seriously inbred and bored, unless they were fanatic, is no reason to study and justify their sick brutalities, as if even one of them was ever a philosopher, ever. Insisting without itemizing the great inventions that only individuals could make, to push our progress forward, our bombs and motor cars made by our Oppenheimers, stars of screen. That's his story. Henry Ford built the cars alone before breakfast, ignoring the question, how are you going to fuel that engine, boss? Oh, okay, you might want to ponder that fossil fuel thing. No, says Bertrand, progress at its finest. Sometimes I wonder if Russell ever crossed a road. Or was he a man of taxis and pavements only, ignoring the fantasy of his projections, just as his students magnify his myopia?